Hey, my name's Adam Poloyan, and I'm going to be drawing SpongeBob. So if a character is acting, I'll try to feel where the pose is coming from. So if the character is screaming, it's coming from maybe their mouth gets really big, like Plankton. Maybe I'll show you what that might look like. So if Plankton's really angry, maybe I'll start with his eyeball sometimes too, so I can have a place to anchor it all from, but get his mouth in there and try to get something that's dynamic and not too stiff, and try to feel like where's the rest of his body acting from. Maybe his antennas are straight, he's like really loud and angry, spit's flying out of his mouth. And I just try to stay loose because the slower you get, the more you kind of like lose focus on what the whole intent of the drawing was. Like if I spend too long on something, I think I get further and further away from like, what was the intention of this pose? I try to get it down fast and try to get quick gestural lines down. So like Plankton's bending down for a jump, I have to do a lot. He's in a squatting pose. His antennas should go down too. Like trying to think of all the different parts of the body, how they're all moving along with the action that's happening. I'll do maybe a character that has some more features, like Patrick. Say Patrick is tired. I try to like act it out myself and try to feel what kind of tired is he feeling, being really specific about the acting. Maybe he's just exhausted, and when you're really exhausted, I'm feeling it in my back. I'm like, oh, gravity's kind of pulling me down towards the floor, so my shoulders are sinking forward, my hands are drooping. Everything's kind of going towards the ground, so then I just know I kind of want to have that line of action in Patrick's back. Maybe he's trying to like keep himself up a little bit with his head, even like his jaw is kind of hanging. Maybe he just ate like 1,000 Krabby Patties or something. And maybe his knees are bent too. He can barely keep himself up. And the more specific you get with the acting, I think the funnier the pose is, because the more relatable the viewer feels with the character. Different than if I'm doing something that's just like a pose like this, where I'm just trying to make an appealing looking SpongeBob. I can focus more just on like the forms and the shapes. It's a bit more second nature. It's like I've kind of done this pose like a bunch of times before, so I don't have to think as much about it. But all the like detail information, like his shoes and socks, something that comes in last. It's not really as important to the drawing. It's stuff that doesn't really change. When a character's acting causes other parts of the body to act as well, so I just want to keep in mind all of that. Maybe if I'll draw crabs and maybe he's fallen on the ground, he's slammed on his face or something, and his eyeballs are now slowly picking themselves off the ground, so now the eyeballs are doing the acting. So first I want to get the body in there, maybe his claws. He's completely face planted in the ground. You can just have like this mangled up eyeball. Maybe his nose too is smashed. And you feel, you want to get some interesting shapes going on inside of his mouth with the different kinds of broken teeth. And of course this is like a very loose drawing, because when we're storyboarding, you just want to get as many poses in there to clarify to the animators how the acting is going to look. And you can touch stuff up later. Maybe you'll shade it, give him a black eye if you really want to be tough on him. But in general, I like to keep the characters a bit cuter. I think the simple expressions are the ones that are funnier and more difficult too. Like they're more subtle and you have less to work with. So you have to hit the mark with a lot less information. I don't know what Patrick's feeling there. Maybe he's been caught doing something. Maybe he's just taken someone else's order for Krabby Patty and he just got caught by SpongeBob. Maybe like those two little bags under his eyes, they can tell you a lot. I try to keep that stuff limited because it's almost like just shorthand for saying stressed. But there's so many other ways you can illustrate that. My favorite character to draw often is Plankton, because there's so much you can do. He's such a simple little bean character, but like he has such a wide range of personality. He's got like, he can be very sarcastic, and he could also be very sensitive and egotistical. He's got that whole Napoleon complex going on with him. So he's such a really rounded character. You can do an angry Plankton, of course, as most people know. Plankton is not happy. doesn't really get his way. He's the villain. His arms are crossed. Or you can do maybe a more flirtatious Plankton even. Maybe he's kind of like being sarcastic in the way that he's being flirty here. Maybe he's making fun of crabs. He's maybe sitting on like a block of dynamite. Well, I went to school for art, and I was drawing my whole life before that, and I was a SpongeBob fan my whole life before that. So I think just the combination of the two really helped when I applied to get a job for the show. And SpongeBob influenced my work so much, just the way that it looked. I think as a kid, what really meant a lot to me was just the way the characters acted, the sense of humor, and also just the overall aesthetic of the show. It's just a show that feels nice when you watch it. Like the whole theme of it is kind of this Hawaiian underwater vibe, and that affected my work. It's a similar thing I've wanted to get across in my own work, which is kind of like, I want this to be pleasant to watch. I think that's just something about the creator of SpongeBob too. He was such a good-hearted person and such a genuine person that it comes across so strong in just SpongeBob himself and the show, and like all the characters. There's no mean-spiritedness to the show, and even though I'm drawing a character right now who's very mean-spirited, but Plankton though is like he's a likable villain. He's a very funny, endearing, charming character because he's not really threatening. He's so small, and he has a simple wish, which is just to have have a successful fast food business to compete with crabs, but he just wants the formula. He's not really a hurtful character. Learning model drawing and stuff in my classes at RISD teaches you a lot about gesture and the form of a pose, trying to construct things, and that traditional fundamental stuff transfers so well over into cartoons because you're working with volume and dimension and proportion. On a different level, you're not working with realistic human proportions, but with a cartoon, you still have to maintain, even like a really wacky pose, you have to maintain the same proportions and volume and everything else. It's a balancing act, and that's kind of what I'm doing as I'm drawing these things. Is something like this, Patrick right here, if this was a board drawing, I would maybe shorten the top of his head and maybe make his belly a little wider, put him a bit more on model. You could draw these characters like a million times. It's still fun. I think that's the thing that people always ask with animation is like, you've drawn this character I've been doing this for 5.5 years, and I still love drawing these guys. The challenge is, what have I not done with this guy yet? Like a lot of this stuff that I'm doing, even his claws, it's like, well, we've done that a million times. You start to find like a way to scribble it out. It's like a signature. The more times you've signed your name, you kind of don't have to think about it as much anymore. And often what I'm looking for with people when I'm hiring artists is like the confidence that they have and just their line, and also the creativity and variations they have going on in their shapes. Things that aren't symmetrical and even, they're just not as interesting to look at. Things that are organic and lively. When someone's line is broad and confident, it's like, wow, and it's controlled. That's a really hard thing to do, and it's kind of knocking out a lot of bad habits. I grew up with the show. I was about 7 years old when it aired. I've never gotten over SpongeBob, so getting to be there for like a landmark in the series is really cool. And getting to see something continue to grow. There's not a lot of shows that stay on this long, and also there's not a lot of shows that continue to take risks that have been going on this long. Like SpongeBob now is still growing. Like they're still doing things differently. We're trying new things, and if there's a new secondary character, new incidental or something, maybe there's a new kind of story that they're telling. I think that's really interesting about the show and unique. There's always a place in this world for SpongeBob. I think it's still the fact that there's all these people who just recently petitioned to get SpongeBob, trying to get him to the Super Bowl. It's like the show has been on for 20 years, and they're trying to get a little segment that aired in 2002 up on TV, and something it's 16 years later. It's that really shows how much this show still means to a lot of people. And there are a lot of people who are young and people who grew up with it, people who are old. There's all kinds of people that are obsessed with SpongeBob. And I am as well. We're always trying to maintain the integrity of it, which is, again, something I think that was made successful with because of the integrity of the creator. Steve was such a great artist with such a good vision, and he didn't seem to sacrifice so much to that. And I think that's where, to this day, some people who are on the show still that were there from the pilot, and they're still just as dedicated to maintaining the same vision. Not just a show that's been on for so long, but a show that's so well respected by the people who work on it, and we're all fans of it. Because it's the 20th and we've had so many different characters on the show from over the years, I just want to scribble in an incidental of the Flying Dutchman, and I love the Flying Dutchman. He's voiced by Brian Doyle Murray. He's a hilarious voice actor.
Nothing better than giving a good scare.
As a fan favorite, he deserves a little highlight on the 20th. My name's Adam Poloyan. Today I drew SpongeBob.